really cold and windy today. It actually feels like there's a little speck of rain or snow, if that's what you want to say currently. Maybe I'll have to bring the umbrella out soon. And with that in mind, what's going on today? I guess it's the official announcement of that DJI Mini 3 non-pro version. So did we learn anything interesting? We knew it was going to be cheaper than the pro version, minus features, for example, like the obstacle avoidance, and as usual too, they show videos and so forth of it. You shouldn't expect anything different though in terms of the camera. Now, one thing I was wondering is how, since they did take out things, for example, like the obstacle sensor, that should mean it would weigh less. Does that mean you could put more, I guess, battery power on this thing while staying under 250 grams? For example, they have the regular intelligent flight battery, which gives you about 38 minutes, and as well they have the Flight Battery Plus, which they say gives you 47 minutes, but that one would actually bring the original one over 250 grams. So would this one stay under? According to their descriptions and stuff, that doesn't seem to be the case, unfortunately, because it says here the standard aircraft weight is about 248 grams, which is including things like the flight battery. And it says here, if you actually use the Battery Plus, it says the aircraft will weigh more than 249 grams, about 290 grams. So unfortunately, that wouldn't be, I guess, a benefit. But the other question would be the cost. Is there a huge difference in terms of this version versus the Pro version? According to this, it says the DJI RC remote controller with screen and the drone is $639 US, according to their own official site. And they say here, the drone with the controller without the screen is $499 US. Now compare that to the Pro version. You can see here, the one with the original controller, the one without the screen, is $759. And it says the one with the screen is $909. And without the drone is $669. So it seemed like you're saving about $170 or more, I guess, with the difference, especially if you factor in things like tax and stuff as well. So is that a good savings, I guess, in terms of the Pro or the non-Pro version, which is primarily, by the sounds of it, things like no obstacle sensors, or whether or not you want obstacle sensors. I personally prefer it without, for the smaller ones anyways, with the way I fly, but I guess that's personal preference, and you'll have more choices, I suppose. It would have been nice, as I said, where if it actually allowed you to use the Plus battery while staying under 250 grams, that would have been a huge benefit, I would have thought. And this was an interesting update about that story of the Russian man that flew around Norway with his drone, and as a result, his equipment got confiscated. It sounded like he was going to charge him and so forth. Well, apparently, I guess, everything is going to not go through. This one says, Norway acquits Putin's ally's son who flew drone. The son of Russian businessman close to President Vladimir Putin has been acquitted in Norway of violating law that bars Russians from flying drones. Andrei Yakinin, who holds both a Russian and a British passport, who lives in Italy, was arrested in Hammerfest in Arctic Norway on October 17th after he had sailed around the Arctic archipelago of Svalbard and along coast of Norway. And as they say here, under Norwegian law, it is prohibited for aircraft operated by Russian companies or citizens to land on, take off, or fly over Norwegian territory. Norway is not a member of the European Union, but mirrors its moves and decided on the ban earlier this year after the invasion of Ukraine. And why was it acquitted? It's kind of interesting here, because it says the Nord-Troms and Senja District Court said late Wednesday that flying a hobby drone is not covered by the sanctioned regulations. That's kind of fascinating, because a lot of places they would treat every drone as the exact same thing, recreational or commercial. So to be acquitted because of that technicality is kind of interesting over there anyways. And I guess it says here, it is very gratifying but not at all surprising that the district court has concluded that Andrei Yakinin has not committed any criminal offense in Norway. His lawyers John Christian Elden and Bernd Heiberg said in a statement. Kind of a fascinating result. I don't know if that technicality will work in other parts of the world, because a lot of places they do consider the drones the exact same thing. They're huge manned aircraft. You're not flying like, say, a toy or something like that. You're flying an airplane. But at the same time, again, there would be no distinction between recreational and commercial. So kind of an interesting, I guess, outcome. I personally find it ridiculous when some people try to classify every single drone, like a toy, literally, like a 10-gram drone, as a manned aircraft. It's kind of like, in my opinion, you saying, hey, pushing a kid in a shopping cart, something that has wheels, it's a car. You need to have a driver's license. Riding a bicycle, same thing. It's the equivalent of you driving like a huge truck. I think it's ridiculous when people try to classify everything in the same way. And the last story I read, which was really fascinating, it dealt with a continuation on how Twitter is releasing all these internal documents to media to report on how it has essentially been censoring, I guess, certain people. And this one was kind of crazy because it talked about here Twitter's secret blacklist. So from the gist of it, it seems like in the back end, Twitter indeed has all these tools to shadow ban people, to stop them from trending and so forth. Now that in itself, I guess, isn't too surprising, but the thing is, a lot of companies, they always deny this. To my knowledge, even Twitter, they'll say they never say blacklist certain people and all that just because of some kind of, I don't know, belief, for example. But apparently, according to this, it would appear they did indeed do that. Like for this example here, it says, take for example Stanford's Dr. J. Bhattacharya, is that how you say it, who argued that COVID lockdowns would harm children. Twitter secretly placed him on a quote trends blacklist, which prevented his tweets from trending. So can you imagine that? Just talking about how you feel about things such as the lockdowns and you don't agree with them, just like that, the platform could suppress you. It is censorship, isn't it? Now they show a bunch of other examples too, and it's kind of interesting to see the dashboard on these accounts being shadow banned and everything like that. But for this one account, it's kind of interesting because according to this person was constantly told by Twitter they violated their policies and so forth. But I guess according to this, it turned out not to be true, where they're using it more as an excuse to quote, I guess, shadow ban them and so forth. That's what you want to say. It says here, Twitter repeatedly informed Right-Chick that she had been suspended for violating Twitter's policy against hateful conduct. But in an internal SIPPES memo from October 2022, after her 7th suspension, the committee acknowledged that LTT has not directly engaged in behavior violative of the hateful conduct policy. And it says, site policy recommends placing @libs of TikTok, 1.3 million followers not verified, in a 7-day timeout at the account level, meaning not for a specific tweet, based on the account's continued pattern of indirectly violating Twitter's hateful conduct policy by tweeting content that either leads to or intends to incite harassment against individuals and institutions that support LGBTQ communities. And I guess this is the important part here. It says, at this time, site policy has not found explicitly violative tweets which would result in permanent suspension of the account. This type of enforcement action, repeated 7-day timeouts at the account level, will not lead to permanent suspension. However, should LTT engage in any other direct tweet level violations of any of the site's policies, we will move forward with permanent suspension. So I quickly looked at the type of videos they were posting, and by the looks of it, it seemed like it was compilation videos of people making various statements per se, and I guess it gets very political, which I could imagine, like everything else in life to do with politics, it ruins everything. But it's kind of really fascinating in general, where it's kind of an admittance here, hey, they didn't really break any, I guess, quote, rules, but for some reason they don't like it, so they put them on this list, they shadow ban them. That's really bad in my opinion. People would say, well, it's no big deal. Companies, they do this all the time. It's their quote product. They can do as they wish. But to my understanding, there's been a lot of talk about this, about censorship and all that. And in the US, weren't people brought up to, I guess, speak under oath or something like that to say, hey, we don't do this. We don't shadow ban people with certain beliefs and all that.
I don't know what Twitter is up to. It sure looks like to me that they're censoring people, and they ought to stop it. Are you censoring people?
No.
I don't see in general how people can't see this as a big deal per se, just in terms of this information. I can imagine, again, just because of things like quote politics, a lot of people will just try to ignore it depending on what side you're on. But again, that's really troubling. Imagine if for any other topics, like they said in the beginning here, where people who were just talking about things like lockdowns and they disagree with it, they were in a sense shadow banned. I mean, imagine with any other topic as well. It kind of reminds me, remember I did that little test for you guys to see whether or not comments are actually being suppressed like on this platform, and it seems like that is the case, where depending on what you comment about specifically, you will get, I guess, deranked. Like your comment will be kind of hidden unless you really look for it. In my opinion, again, that's not right overall. Alright, see you guys later.